Spring is spectacular here at Brook Green Gardens. We'll tell you all about it coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're on the patio of the Holiday Cottage at Brook Green Gardens, which was voted again by Southern Living Readers as one of the top 3 gardens in the South. And we're visiting with Dr. John Sands, the Vice President for Collections. Good morning, John. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Delighted you could join us here at Brook Green. Thanks for coming.
Incredible opportunity to highlight all week so much of what's going on in the gardens, to think about the Southern Living Gardening School coming up this Saturday.
Well, now that it's spring, we're a busy place. We've got a lot going on for people, and we hope they'll join us sometime.
Very definitely, year-round. Can we talk real quick about yourself, John? When did you join Brook Green Gardens?
I've been here a little over 4 years.
Okay. Are you originally from the area?
No, I actually grew up in Maryland and came here via Virginia, so I've been working my way south.
Aha. Where had you been prior to joining Brook Green Gardens?
I was on the staff at Colonial Williamsburg, where I was in charge of the collections.
Great. Can you tell us how your career path led to your interest in early Americana?
Probably through circuitous routes, as is the case with most people. I came to it through archaeology, actually, and had studied early American artifacts and worked in archaeology for a while. I finally decided I'd get an indoor job, stay dry.
Where were some of the locations as an archaeologist that you spent time? Was that around the country, around the world?
Actually, most of it was on the East Coast, and I worked as an underwater archaeologist, so I was working on the shipwrecks at Yorktown and also in the Caribbean.
Is that right? That's amazing. How about, what exactly does the Vice President for Collections cover?
My job is to ensure that the collections here at Brook Green, which encompass sculpture and historical materials and wildlife animals, are properly cared for, exhibits are interpretive, make them accessible to the people, and we have a number of very talented curators who are working with each of the individual collections, but I try to coordinate some of that.
I'm sure. Well, it truly is an amazing facility. How many acres are out here, John? Do you know?
We have about 9,000 acres here, which is a lot for the Strand area.
9,000 acres. Yeah. That is.
We don't necessarily walk all of them every day, but part of our job is preservation of landscape.
And why do you think conservation and preservation have been such a primary mission since Brook Green Gardens was organized?
Well, it's something that the Huntingtons were very keen on. They really they were quite visionary in terms of land preservation. They not only did that here, but in Virginia and in New York State, buying up large chunks of land in areas where people didn't think there would ever be population pressure, and those now are really serious conservation areas. They also were much intrigued by the history of the area and the atmosphere of the place.
You mentioned the Huntington name. Is there some connection between, obviously, the Huntington family that was associated with setting up Brook Green Gardens and Huntington Beach State Park across the street?
Yes. Actually, Archer and Anna Hyatt Huntington, who founded Brook Green, bought the property here in 1930 as a winter retreat. And they built their house on the beach at what is now Huntington Beach State Park. Atalaya is a house that they built to use during the winters to come down here for the warmer climate. And we at Brook Green still own, actually, Huntington Beach State Park. It's leased to the state.
Is that right?
So they operate it very well.
Oh, yes, very definitely. It is gorgeous. Can you tell the viewers a little bit, John, about early plantation life?
Well, the Brook Green, like so many plantations here, was founded as a money machine for investors. It really was intended to be a business proposition, and the plantation owners raised a number of crops and developed the property aggressively, and they of course relied on slave labor that people brought from Africa to do that, and relied on not only their knowledge but also their backs and their brawn. The land here was massively modified to allow for rice cultivation, indigo cultivation up on the uplands, corn, sweet potatoes, that sort of thing.
Those would be the four primary: rice, indigo, corn.
Yes, and the corn and sweet potatoes tend to be more for local consumption. And then there were a lot of animals. They had almost 200-300 sheep here at Brook Green for wool production.
And sheep were commonly part of plantation life?
I was surprised to find that down in this hot climate, but they did, when we looked at the inventory of animals that were here at Brook Green, there were several hundred sheep. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How did agricultural development impact the natural landscape and ecology of the Low Country?
Well, I think there's a tendency when you go out on the Waccamaw River or cruise around on the creeks to assume that you're looking at a sort of virgin wilderness that's untouched. And in fact, it's about as virgin as an abandoned strip mine. It's remarkable the way the landscape was modified to accommodate that rice farming. The cypress trees and tupelo trees that had grown there for hundreds of years were cut down, and the land was literally leveled, almost as though they'd used a laser level to level it. It's wonderfully complex work. Dikes were built, water control devices, and what we see today is essentially abandoned rice fields that are growing back up again. And nature is reclaiming the land.
That is amazing as you think about it. Can you give the viewers a sense of how Brook Green Gardens has brought the plantation experience to life for its visitors, folks who are visiting for the first time? How is that recognized when they come?
Well, it's an area that we are pursuing more aggressively now than we have in the past, but it's something we've had in the background. I think the character of the plantations and the history was one of the things that attracted the Huntingtons here. And we've been trying to make explicit reference to the slave populations that were here as individuals, not just as numbers, but as people who had character, who had interests, who had feelings and demands on their lives. We've tried to interpret the cultivation of the rice at the Low Country Center. We have an exhibit that talks about the interface between man and the landscape, the changes that are going on, a fairly recent development for us there. And we are beginning to build additional areas that will interpret further life on the plantation from perspectives other than moonlight and magnolias. We don't want to just talk about scarlet hair and hoop skirts. We want to talk about the whole process of the plantation and what made it tick.
We hear the words Low Country Trail, and we oftentimes think about Brook Green Gardens. What are some of the lessons that visitors would learn as they travel the Low Country Trail, and what exactly is the Low Country Trail?
Well, the Low Country Trail is under development now, and we have segments of it in place, and we're continuing to build it. But the beginning at the Low Country Center, you then go out to the rice field overlook. We have a 35-acre restored field that was one of the main fields at Brook Green, producing over 2,000 bushels of rice a year. And we don't grow rice in it these days because of federal regulations on wetlands management, but we do manage it to create the appearance of a rice field and for waterfowl. We will have, opening in about a month, we're going to have a display of domestic animals that would have been appropriate to the plantation. Cows, horses, mules, sheep, chickens, guinea fowl, all rare breed animals that have a story, that are non-hybridized, old breeds that are probably typical of what might have been here during the period.
When we think about animals, why would animals, domestic or wild, be important in the experience of Brook Green Gardens?
Well, I think what attracted the Huntingtons was a sense of antiquity and history and almost the spirituality of that history. And so it's incumbent on us to try to recreate that in some way, to give people access to understanding the past. And animals were such a critical part of people's lives in the 19th century. We take it for granted that you can go down and buy $2 a gallon gasoline now. But they neither could buy gasoline nor did they have anything to put it in. I mean, they relied, obviously, on horses. There were 40 horses here at Brook Green. They relied on oxen to pull the plows. They relied on sheep and chickens and guinea fowl and all the rest of it for food. It was very much more a more immediate sort of environment, and animals were a part of the agricultural economy.
John, how have these animals been acquired by Brook Green?
Well, in a variety of ways. We are fortunate to be able to rely on the expertise of some others. The American Livestock Breeds Conservancy has helped us to find some breeders, and some local, some further away. And there are people around the country who are preserving these old breeds specifically because they are rare and the gene pool needs to be preserved. And we're going to get some on loan, and some will be buying. But that's going to make for an interesting story for us, I think, as we're able to pull those together and make them accessible. We're going to have an open house on May 17th, in fact.
Great.
Have a lot of those available.
When I sit here, I think of an interesting story. I think of a man coming here as a former underwater archaeologist, obviously having had the experiences at Colonial Williamsburg and now being at Brook Green Gardens and experiencing, as you say, everything outdoors or an inside job, but this amazing place outdoors. What has that transition been like for you as you think back on your time?
There are people who accuse me of having a short attention span, but I've really enjoyed all of the things, of course, that I've been involved with. But it's been wonderful to come and work here in this environment. It's just such a it really is a spiritual place in many ways. Just you walk around and can't help but feel the sense of tranquility and age that lives here. It's been a great treat.
And when someone asks you what you like best about your experiences over the last 4 years at Brook Green Gardens, would it be that spirituality?
Absolutely. I mean, and really, I hate it when people come here and feel as though they have only 20 minutes to charge through and have to run away again. To me, you have to slow down and enjoy the pace, the age, the antiquity, and the beauty. That's what it's about. That's what we enjoy.
You heard John Sand say it. You've got to slow down and enjoy the pace here at Brook Green Gardens. Come down Monday through Sunday. Gates open at 8:45. The experience is an experience of a lifetime. You heard him say it. John, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. Good morning. Welcome back to Carolina People. This morning we're on the patio of the Holiday Cottage at Brook Green Gardens, and we're visiting with Teresa Snyder, the Associate Curator of Animals. Good morning, Teresa. Thank you all for being with us this morning.
You're welcome.
Incredible opportunity all week to highlight Brook Green Gardens and so much of what's going on out here, and to visit with the two of you here today is truly a treat. Wild Kingdom we are. Can we talk real quick about yourself, Teresa? Are you originally from the area?
No, I grew up in West Virginia. I've only been living in the area for about a year and a half.
Okay. For about a year and a half?
Mm-hmm.
And how long have you been at Brook Green Gardens?
Just under a year. Just right around a year. I started last March, at the end of last March.
Okay. Where did you work prior to your involvement here at Brook Green Gardens?
In West Virginia, I worked at a raptor rehabilitation center for several years, and in this area, I originally worked at Butterfly Pavilion.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you attend school for working with raptors or other animals?
With animals, yes. I have a Bachelor of Science in Wildlife Science.
Right.
And along with that degree comes national certification. I'm a certified wildlife biologist.
Okay. What was your first job? Your first job in the field coming out of school was?
The Raptor Center. Working at the Raptor Center. While I was job searching, I volunteered there to get some experience in my field.
Right. When you say a raptor school, what is a raptor?
A raptor is a bird of prey. Hawks, eagles, owls, kestrels, falcons, they're birds of prey. And the Raptor Rehabilitation Center, there are a couple in this area even. If there's an injured raptor or an orphaned one, you take it to a Raptor Rehabilitation Center. And there, either they are rehabilitated if they were injured, or they're raised if they were orphaned, and then hopefully re-released.
Okay. What do you think prompted you, Teresa, to pursue a career as a wildlife biologist?
Not any one thing, but I've always had an interest in animals. I've always had an interest in science. My father was a science teacher, and so that's always been in my background. And I just wanted to work with animals.
How about, how did you originally become acquainted with Brook Green Gardens?
I was living in the area and working at Butterfly Pavilion.
Right.
And the position there wasn't quite what I was looking for. So I started to entertain the idea for looking for other employment opportunities in the area. So I came to Brook Green, and I went to the wildlife park and attended Mother Nature's Cafe, which is a guided tour through the wildlife park, and left my resume with an employee, and here we are.
When you visited for the first time, did you have an initial reaction or initial view of the programs or the exhibits that were offered here at Brook Green Gardens?
I was really impressed because the animal exhibits here in the wildlife park are very unique because all of the animals are enclosed in their natural habitats and all of the exhibits are spacious, and that really impressed me because that's a really unique situation for animal enclosures.
What does a curator of animals do exactly, Teresa?
The curator of animals oversees the animal collection. They make sure that the animals are cared for properly on a daily basis. They acquire new animals or place surplus animals that we might have. I keep track of all the permits and policies that we need to have with the USDA and the Fish and Wildlife Service, things like that. And in my case, I also am in charge of volunteers that give the daily tours through the wildlife park.
Yeah.
And also the Meet the Animals program here. I present the program the majority of the time myself, and then I have a few others that work with me, and they also present that program.
Do you have any volunteers involved in the Meet the Animals program?
Just one. It's generally a paid staff position, the presenters. But we do have one volunteer who has been here for many years and has a lot of animal handling experience, and she also gives it.
Is the Meet the Animals program something you all do on a regular basis? Is that a daily thing?
It's a daily program all year round.
Wow.
In the spring and summer months, it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, spring and summer months at 3 p.m. Great. And what would someone, if someone's visited Brook Green Gardens, obviously a lot of folks, when they hear the word gardens, they're down here to see the beautiful outdoors, but there's surely so much more to Brook Green Gardens than just that. If someone was visiting for the first time, or maybe the second or third time, and wanted the experience at 3 o'clock daily, what would they see if they came?
Well, what we do is we have 3 or 4 animals, live animals, and they're native animals. All the animals here are native to the southeastern United States. And we would have 3 or 4 live animals, and we would talk about the animal's natural history and different facts and interesting things about the animals. And then really a visitor could learn anything they wanted because we give lots of opportunities for questions, and so they can learn anything they would like about the animals that we use in the programs.
Great. Well, that's exciting. I know there's so many. When I look at a snake, when I think about your involvement with animals, when I look at a snake, I don't always think about them as an animal. I just, but they truly are part of the program there, I'm sure. Yes.
And that's part of the program to share knowledge with the public. A lot of people have misconceptions about certain animals, and a lot of people have fear of snakes.
Yeah,
and,
sure, right here.
That's part of the.
I'm kidding.
That's part of the purpose of the program, is to educate people and clear up any misconceptions and things like that, and to make the point that every animal is important and it has its own role that it plays in the ecosystem, and so that's part of the content of the program.
Absolutely. Well, that's exciting. How many species are under your supervision, Teresa?
We have right around 30.
30? That keeps you busy.
Keeps me busy.
Oh, very definitely. You've had to expand your expertise to include a wide array of animals. Where did you go about learning the skills to oversee 30 different species?
We are an AZA accredited institution. The AZA is the American Zoological Association. Through them, I have a lot of resources for knowledge, and I can also contact other zoos for knowledge. But I sort of have my own thirst for knowledge too, and I constantly do research to learn new things. Also, I have 2 zookeepers that work with me, and they have worked at Brook Green for a number of years, and so they have a lot of hands-on experience with a lot of the animals that we have here. So I can I've gained a lot of knowledge from them as well.
When you think about, you talked about some of the other folks that are involved in the animal program. Are there folks that, can you talk about some of the folks who work with you in caring for the wildlife here?
There are 2 full-time and 1 part-time zookeepers that work with me with the animals, and they do the daily tasks with the animals, preparing their diets and feeding them, and taking care of their enclosures and things like that. They also take care of the grounds in the wildlife park.
Right.
They sort of work behind the scenes, and they really do a great job. Sometimes people don't realize that they're there because they're behind the scenes.
That's right. It's amazing. I think John Sands just earlier was talking about so many folks behind the scenes that enable 1 or 2 people to really get out in the forefront. Makes a big difference. How have the wildlife that are part of the Brook Green Gardens experience been acquired?
All of the animals that we have here were born in captivity, injured in some way, and they can't be re-released, or orphaned, and they can't be re-released. We didn't take away anyone's freedom. All of the animals come from other zoos or wildlife rehabilitation centers.
Can you talk about the presentation? I know we talked a little bit earlier, Teresa, about the presentations and what all's learned, but when we think about the presentations, for instance, how would the presentation with the snake that's in your hand go, or in your hands, excuse me, for viewers who may not have caught been able to see that the whole time as it's been in your hands. How would a presentation, for instance, for a first time, for a viewer who may not have seen the show, what would you do with the snake, for instance?
I would hold him very similarly to how I'm holding him now. And I would talk about snakes in general, some of their characteristics. I would give some facts about this snake in particular, which is a yellow rat snake. I would talk about his particular eating habits and his range, where they are found, and things like that. And I talk about their different senses, their diets, reproduction, things like that. And then, like I said, there's an opportunity for questions so that people can ask questions about their personal experiences and so on, and we can distinguish between fact and fiction.
And would folks be able to pet many of the animals, or do you try to keep them away, or are there fears, for instance? Should I be afraid sitting here next to you, Teresa, or not at all?
No. Some of the animals we offer the public to touch if they like. Obviously, if I was offering for you to pet the snake, I would keep his head away from you. He's very docile, but better safe than sorry.
Right. How about the Low Country Center? Can we talk real quick about that, Teresa? What would a visitor to the Low Country Center see for their first time?
The Low Country Center is sort of a transition point from the sculpture element of the property to the history and wildlife element. It also houses the boat and the trekker depart from the Low Country Center. And the Low Country Center is also really the start of the Low Country Trail. Okay.
And the Low Country Trail, we heard from John earlier, is not yet completed. When do you all expect completion? Do you know?
Well, as he mentioned, the domestic animal exhibit will be open in April. And there's an additional overlook that's being constructed. And so most of it will be open this spring. The whole Low Country Trail, however, includes the entire wildlife trail also, and there are some new exhibits being constructed there as well, and that will continue in the future as well.
Okay. Are guided tours of the Low Country Trail offered?
Yes, twice a day, every day. That we have Mother Nature's Cafe, which is at 11 a.m., and that is an animal tour.
Right.
The animals are fed a snack, and the docents talk about the habitats and the natural history about all of the animals. And at 1 p.m., we have Flora, Fauna, and Fables, and that is a plant tour. And the docents talk about, they point out specific plants along the trail, and they talk about their historical uses and what they're used for today, and so on.
Mm-hmm. And so the visitor can learn so many things from that opportunity of being on the Low Country Trail, particularly a guided tour. Teresa, what do you like best about your work here at Brook Green Gardens?
I think working with the animals, it's something that I've always wanted to do, and now I can do it. Like I said, we're going to be expanding the wildlife trail a little bit, so there's that opportunity for growth and new challenges and opportunities, and so I think that's what I enjoy most.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. Very exciting. Y'all, it's breakfast time. Snakes are fed, too. Teresa Snyder's with us. Thank you, Teresa. Get out and see her. 3 p.m.
Yes.
Daily. That's great. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank all the staff and volunteers here at Brook Green Gardens for making today's Carolina People so special. And come on out this Saturday, March 22nd, gates open at 8:45, rain or shine, the Southern Living Gardening School.